to the Let It Fly show. I am Michael Severe, joined by Josh Jones. Central Eagles.
Yes, sir.
Fly, Central Fly.
Oh, forever.
Forever.
Hey,
and, of course,
let me
Creighton
tell you
too.
something real fast before you keep going. I ran into Eric Barron's, childhood best friend.
Oh, really?
It was crazy.
Yeah.
He was like, man, I've been knowing Eric so long that I can tell you his favorite crayon in our
when he was a kid.
Yeah. But no, go ahead, man.
Eric was one of the first coaches that I actually, high school coaches, that I met and talked to.
Yeah.
He was great early on when I first got here. Nice dude and won a ton, obviously. Won a ton. We are live inside the Let It Fly Sports Bar in the Capital District. I want to remind you that we're closed next Thursday down here.
Thanksgiving.
But you can go out west.
You can.
You hungry? You got nobody coming over?
Go
got
out
little
west.
friends giving stuff? Go out west and get you something to eat. That Let It Fly there. Also brought to you by our presenting sponsor, Bud Light. No matter if you're hanging out here at the bar or you're hanging out at home, wherever you are, easy drinking, easy buckets, easy touchdowns, easy spikes, easy to drink and easy to enjoy.
Yep.
Let me tell you about what we got here. This is the Buffalo Chicken Mac.
This is what I learned about today's day and age.
So I checked out the chicken when it first came. Chicken is kicking.
I know.
It's got a little kick to it, spicy. On top of it, you get a little blue cheese and some chives. I'm not a huge macaroni and cheese person.
I am.
Because I'm grown. But
I feel you.
But I tried it. It's good. It's good. I dealt with them. I thought the mac and cheese was good, but the chicken on top is kicking.
No doubt.
Very, very good.
Yeah.
So this is something you can pick up, of course, at Let It Fly when you are here, whether you're here for a game day or not. Definitely.
Yep.
This is going to be one heck of. We taped it on Thursday. Friday and Saturday are going to be awesome.
Yep.
All right. So starting off Friday at 4:00, you got Nebraska and Creighton women playing at Sokol.
The women first.
4:00.
Okay.
They're at 4:00 at Sokol.
Gotcha.
Right? So you got that great little rivalry, Nebraska and Creighton getting it on. And then 3 hours later, 7:00, right over here,
It's gonna be popping.
CHI, you got Creighton and Nebraska getting back at it again. You got that going on.
Right.
And then Saturday, check this out. You got Nebraska playing Wisconsin in football.
Crazy.
And then at 7, that's at 2:30. And then at 7, Nebraska's playing Wisconsin in volleyball.
That's lit.
Going on 7 blocks from each other or whatever.
That's
So
lit.
Friday and Saturday will be fun.
Is that rare?
Yeah, it doesn't happen. Well, sometimes the volleyball team will play, close to or the same time as Nebraska football. They try to avoid it, but rarely it's the same team.
Man,
especially when it's this higher ranked.
I think that the world is on to something. It's like high school basketball. You got the girls before the boys.
Yeah, like a jamboree. Get it done.
I mean, does it help the revenue shares any? Because look, though.
Yeah, they're not the same place, though. I wonder how.
Because that's the
Sokol.
thing. Because what if that go to overtime?
Yep.
Yeah.
So if you want to go to both games, if you want to go to both games, you know how traffic is around that time.
Yeah.
So, and it's still a Friday.
Right.
So everybody's been getting off work. That game finishes maybe 6:15.
Right.
And then you got to bust it over here for the 7:00 game. And so
it's going to work this weekend.
It'll work. It's perfectly timed.
Yep.
And then the same thing will happen on Saturday with Nebraska ball 2:30, as I mentioned. And then volleyball, Nebraska's 2 and Wisconsin 6 over at the Devaney. So it's going to be good. On the show today, previewing that first matchup over at Sokol, Jim Flanery will join us, the head coach of Creighton women's basketball. We'll talk about that game and much more, get into a bunch of stuff with him. But headlines, we start off with deja vu all over again. Nebraska, tell me if you've heard this before. Nebraska's still trying to get to win number 6 for bowl eligibility. I've said that in 4 straight weeks. This is the 5th week where Nebraska's trying to get to that. They fell at USC, of course, 28-20. Nebraska fell 20-20 despite having an interception return for a touchdown.
True.
Having a blocked field goal and a strip sack in the opponent's territory.
That sounds like a winning game.
You do that is a game plan where I go, you probably going to win the game.
Exactly.
But you know what you got to do? When you get in the red zone,
I know.
You got to score touchdowns.
I'm about to say you got to score.
You got to score touchdowns. That's the way it works. This matchup is so even.
Yes.
This is how even it is. Both teams are 5-5. Both teams' offenses have scored on the season 29 touchdowns.
See, man, listen.
Both teams' defenses have allowed 26 touchdowns. You know how rare that is? How crazy that is? Both teams play all these games, and they both scored 29 touchdowns, and they played all these games, and the defenses have both given up 26 touchdowns.
All that tells
nuts,
me, man, is both teams have a hell of a lot to lose.
Yeah. Oh,
and
yeah.
The loser is going to hurt.
It's going to be hurt, man. Wisconsin's turned the ball over 16 times. Nebraska's turned it over 14 times.
Man.
Wisconsin's quarterback, Braden Locke's thrown 9 interceptions. Dylan Raiola's thrown 10 interceptions.
But it just kind of seems like Wisconsin has always had Nebraska's number.
Well, we can get to that. Nebraska's lost to Wisconsin every time they played since the last time Nebraska beat them, which was September of 2012. Dang. Wisconsin won 10 in a row over the course of the last 12 years. Now, there is one difference.
What's that?
So, Nebraska changed their OC 2 weeks ago and had a chance to play with their new OC, Dana Holgorsen. Okay. And things were a little bit better, especially running the ball.
Right.
Wisconsin fired their offensive coordinator on Sunday.
So nobody playing.
So this is gonna be the first game they've had. Whoever's calling the game now gonna be a little different.
Man.
And so they do have a little bit of advantage. And special teams, like always, Wisconsin is the 4th ranked special teams. Nebraska is the 69th.
Right.
So
can't wait to tell you my score prediction.
Yeah. So let's move on. Headline number 2.
Yep.
Some big games this week.
What's that?
Indiana, Ohio State.
That's a big game.
Everybody, Indiana ain't played nobody, blah, blah, blah. They're 5th ranked. Ohio State is 2. Indiana's beat up on most of the teams they played, only really had 2 close games. Ohio State's had close games with, like, Nebraska. It's a good matchup.
I'm just sitting here patient because I'm like.
You know what the line is? You know what the betting line is?
Ooh, it's like.
Ohio State is favored by how much?
I would say 7.
13 and a half.
Oh, okay.
Opened at 9. Mm-hmm. Everybody's betting Indiana because of the points.
No, for sure.
And the line is going up. That is called, Josh, reverse line movement.
Right.
When people are betting one way and the bookies are still moving the line, that means money is coming in more than what those bets are.
Right. And my thing is, so 2 things I was going to say. One is like that whole you ain't played nobody thing.
Yep.
All right, cool. Let's say they get knocked off, dominated. They ain't played nobody.
Okay.
Do you really punish them when it comes to that playoff? Because it
depends on how bad you said they get dominated. Give me a score. Like, what would the score be?
All right, let me retract dominated.
No. Give me a score where you. So let's say they lose the game 42-7. Say they lose the game like Nebraska lost Indiana. Right. Say they lose 56-7.
Yeah.
I don't think they're gonna. I think they would drop too far because they don't have any growth. But
so
say 31,
what's the consideration
24,
score?
30, 34, 27, something like that. They don't drop as far.
Because now, do we disrespect Army? I mean,
well, Army. The way they're playing, if Army was to beat Notre Dame,
right,
and then win their last game against Navy, well, before that they got to go to the ACC title game.
Right.
If they win those games, they're going to be the 12th seed. If they go ahead of Boise,
all right. So I guess my point.
They're going to get it.
I'm trying to say is like, when you are in a scenario like Indiana and you hot, I think it's more so. It's not really about losing. It's about how you lose.
Sure.
That's what I was trying to say.
So tell me this. How do you determine how good a team is if you don't base it on who they played and who they beaten?
Wait, say that one more time.
How do you judge how good a team is if you don't judge it based off on who they played and who they beat? How do you know? Because obviously Ohio State and Indiana haven't played the same teams.
I know.
Right? So, because you got an 18-team conference.
I know.
So the way you judge who is necessarily better, at least the way we've done it before, is
like a point differential.
Who did Ohio State play? Did they play higher ranked teams?
Yeah.
Did they beat? They beat number 4 Penn State.
Like a point differential, right?
More of a ranking differential.
Well,
I don't believe Indiana's played any team that's ranked higher than 60th in the power ranking.
That's facts.
Okay, so they have like 100th whatever power ranking for them.
Right.
In terms of their strength of schedule.
Yep.
And Ohio State, on the other hand, is like 10.
Yep.
So when you're comparing them, that's one way to compare. All Indiana has to do is win.
That's it.
If they win that game, that means no matter what happens against Purdue, they're going to the Big Ten title game.
Yeah.
They're going to probably play against Oregon.
Yep.
They're definitely going to play. Oregon's already in.
Yep.
And then they control their own destiny. Just win your own games and your destiny is controlled.
So for these teams that don't get these power ranking schedules like in Ohio State, essentially, is that the formula every single year?
Well, Indiana can. So if Indiana...
outside of them.
Indiana could schedule in their non-conference tougher games, right?
Like
Nebraska played Colorado this year, right?
Indiana can.
You can in non-conference. You can schedule.
No doubt.
Schedule better than they did.
Yeah.
They chose to schedule that, and it made sense.
So
eventually, you're going to get to a point, though, where some teams will say, what is it even worth us playing these tough non-conference games if I'm not going to get rewarded for playing them? Like, I may lose. So, for example, Boise, for example, they played Oregon.
Yep.
They lost by 3 points to the #1 team.
Right.
They should get amazing credit for that.
Right.
I don't think they're getting enough
They're not.
for playing that team. But
I agree.
Who you got?
I hate to say it, I got Ohio State.
Ohio State?
Yeah.
Close, big.
I got it big.
Okay, so I was picking the whole week 35-17 Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
And in the last couple of days, with Indiana having a week off,
Right.
and I picked a little, so I changed my pick. I picked 31-24.
Yeah, that's fair.
Losing them by a touchdown, Indiana gets a late score to bring it to a 7-point game. So I originally had it bigger.
You're betting on their offense. No matter who they play, sometimes you are that good. Their offense is that good.
Yeah, and sometimes all you can't get out of your mind is Nebraska could have beaten Ohio Sate.
Man.
Indiana, I know
they dominated.
Indiana beat Nebraska.
I'm feeling you.
So
I'm not going to retract my pick, but I'm not going to say I'm going to change the score.
That's hard to get out of your head.
I feel you.
Let's do Army and Notre Dame. We mentioned a second ago. Number 19 Army playing Notre Dame in Yankee Stadium.
I know.
That game, Notre Dame is a 14.5-point favorite.
Yes.
Here's the thing about that game. When you play a team like Army, Notre Dame's probably only going to get 6 or 7 possessions.
Very true.
If they don't convert on those possessions, they could be in trouble.
They will be.
But athletically, it's not very comparable.
No.
And if you'll see what happened when Notre Dame against Navy, they destroyed Navy. Yeah. I think Army's better, but if Notre Dame gets it going and Army gets behind, they're in a little trouble.
Well, I think the thing about Notre Dame is like the style of offense they have is almost methodical to me.
They have some explosive. Army's methodical as hell.
Yeah, but no, well, that's what
Army had a 16-play drive that lasted 8 minutes.
No, that's true. That's true. But I'm just saying, I think Notre Dame got explosive positions.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But I think overall it is a evenly matched game. It's like you got almost more athletic Army in a sense. The way I'm seeing, the way I'm seeing it.
Right.
So I'm saying if Notre Dame is off their game,
sure,
it's going to be hard for them to keep Army off until the end.
And I'm pretty sure about this. Next week they play USC.
That's true.
Notre Dame's got to be thinking about a little bit about USC. So that could be it. And then the last one we have is Colorado and Kansas. That is in Arrowhead Stadium.
That's crazy.
I know. That's pretty cool.
That's crazy.
Colorado is a 3-point favorite.
Yeah.
Playing Kansas, who over the last 2 weeks beat Iowa State and beat was it Utah?
It's Utah.
They said they have 2 games they won.
It's Utah.
No, BYU.
No.
Comparing them. So they
sure?
beat BYU last week, who was undefeated, and the week before they beat Iowa State. Iowa State was the favorite in the Big 12. Kansas beat them. Then BYU became the favorite. Kansas beat them. Now the favorite is Colorado. And they play them a third week in a row.
Colorado has been playing a good brand of football. I still think they got things that they need to clean up for sure.
Sure, defensively, yeah.
Exactly. I think it makes for a heck of a game. And I know, we joke off camera about Colorado and how they are sometimes and stuff, but I think that they know what's at stake.
Oh, there's no doubt.
Yeah. And I think that game is going to be played to the magnitude of what's on the line.
Oh, I think so too. I think it's going to be a great game. It's going to be a fun game. It's not a great slate. Like those are 3 of the best.
Right.
But that's going to be a great one.
Yeah.
Last thing on the headlines, LeBron is saying he's stepping away from social media. LeBron's stepping away because people are calling him a liar, saying he really didn't watch Dalton Connect in college at Tennessee. People are putting together these videos of all these things they say LeBron has lied about before.
No, that's true.
So LeBron is frustrated,
and
he's like, I'm off social media. I'm stepping away.
Yeah.
I don't want to deal with it
anymore. But he also is the same guy. I think that LeBron James is like just like me and you, bro. He loves sports.
Yeah.
He just say what comes to his mind.
Sure.
And forget he's LeBron James.
Right.
Because he
and then people could check it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
Sometimes people can check stuff.
Right. And so with that being said, I think even before the Dalton Connect stuff, when he said that, I'm like, boy, you tripping. You the one who traded the coach and the players. Yeah. So and I love LeBron, so I'm not saying any negative energy, but he also kind of put a target on his son back. Because there was a point in time when he also said on social media,
yes, he did,
that my son can play in the NBA right now.
Yeah.
And now, even the people who were writing for him with nepotism, which he does deserve. If I was LeBron, I think I deserve. If anything I can pick my son.
Yeah.
He does deserve that. But now that your son doesn't have to ride the bus and all that, because of like celebrity status, I think it kind of takes away from his son's opportunity to actually get the full experience and become a basketball player.
How long do you think he stays off social media? A week, 2 weeks, a month, playoff time?
Good question.
All-Star game break?
I think.
How long?
Man, I give him about a month.
A full month.
A full month. And the reason why is because it's gotten that back because it's double. It's his son
it
too,
is, yep.
and it's Dalton Connect. That's why I brought his son up.
Yeah.
You know?
Real quick before we take a break and we get to our guest.
Yep.
The top 10 NFL players in terms of Twitter followers, if you add them all up, they have fewer followers than LeBron.
Dang.
Yeah, he's got a lot of followers.
And that's because people wear helmets.
They wear helmets, exactly, yes.
Yeah.
When we come back, we'll talk to the head women's basketball coach at Creighton, Jim Flanery, here on Let It Fly Show.
On a Sunday.
Gotta go. I forgot the sausage. You guys ready to eat? There you go.
On a Sunday.
All right, welcome back to the Let It Fly Show. We are joined by our guest this week, the head women's basketball coach at Creighton, Jim Flanery, joining us. Coach Flan, what's going on? How you doing?
I'm doing well. It feels like basketball season finally. It's really cold, and people are complaining about how cold it is, even though it's going to be 30 degrees colder in a month. Right?
Before we get into actual play, in the headline segment, we talked about LeBron James saying, "I'm getting off of social media." It's just too much now.
That's a lie, bro.
Let's talk about how you guys handle it in terms of your student athletes. What do you tell them? How do you, because it's an earning way now with NIL. How do you balance that?
Well, I let my assistants take care of it, honestly. I'm too old to know what they're on and what they're posting. So I really leave it up to my assistant coaches. And if there's an issue, they'll come to me and say, hey, so-and-so did this. I talked to them about it. And then they fill me in, which is a lot of what happens when you get to be an older head coach. I feel like you have to rely on youth to
but it can really bother us too, athlete. They did Nebraska did this. ESPN did this piece on Nebraska volleyball, and the one lady was talking about all the stuff she saw when they lost a game and how it affected her. I mean, that can really get to you.
Oh, damn, I can feel that. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, we've got, the emphasis on mental health is so much different than even 5 years ago. Honestly, like I feel like we're more in tune with that, and we're, you get reports. Jalen Agnew, who's now on my staff, like she's taking every player to coffee over the next 2 weeks. So she's I think she's taken 5 of them this week, and she's going to take the rest of them next week. And it's basically, we talk to them before practice, after practice, et cetera. They'll come into our offices and watch film, but that's a different level of, hey, how are things really going?
Somebody's been in that spot.
And Jalen's 27, so she's a lot closer to she knows what their issues are more than I would know.
Yeah, so she could hoop too.
Yeah, she could hoop.
They're like, you're having a conversation with somebody who could hoop too.
Oh, I know.
But she jumped into our. We were supposed to bring in practice guys today. We didn't have enough, so she had to jump in as the 5th. And when she'd miss, I'd yell, "Brick!" I'd leave her two. Self-check.
That's funny.
But anyway, she could hoop.
When I think of you and I think of hooping, there's one coach that will forever come to my mind. Chevy.
Oh yeah.
Coach Chevelle Herring. Yeah. Now Sonacy. But I thought she can really hoop. She like me, get them all up, whenever every shot's an open shot, but she was a legit hooper.
Chevy once went 3 for 26.
I once
in a game, 3 for 26.
Yeah.
I went 3 for 16.
Did you?
Yep.
Yeah. So she got 10 more. Rob Anderson had the best line though. He goes, she did get hot. She made 2 of her last 7. 2 of her last 7.
Yeah. I was 23, 24, 25. What were those shots like? Yeah. Okay.
Now, in fairness to her, she ended up getting the ball at the end of the shot clock a lot.
Yeah, she was a playmaker.
What was she going to do? What are you going to do? You had to shoot it. So she always reminds, every time I tell the story, she reminds me, they kept throwing it back to me at the end of the shot clock, and they knew I wasn't hot. So it's their fault, too.
Yeah, that's when you got to get to the basket and get fouled and go to the line.
Yeah.
She was probably doing that, too.
All right, so tougher start for the season for you guys. 2 of 3 start on the road. I mean, who put that schedule together?
I like it, though.
Anderson for that?
No, I did.
Wait a minute. I want to applaud him for everybody watching because sometimes I watch the exhibition games before the conference, and I'm just like, God, she was putting together these weeks. I respect it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do our scheduling. I've done it forever, and we scheduled hard before we got in the Big East, and we just kind of decided to keep doing it. It's hard on the women's side because we can't necessarily pay the same amount of guarantee money that a Nebraska or an Iowa State or these teams in the area can pay. So it's like hard to get by games. So you end up playing really good mid-major teams like South Dakota State and Drake and Northern Iowa. And, it just so happened that, Kansas State, I took that series thinking that their 7th year 6'6" kid would have graduated after 6 years. And there she did. And then soon after the contract was signed, I see, she's coming back for a 7th year. And I'm like, wait a minute, they didn't tell me that. And then they added a 20-point-a-game scorer from Tulsa. So, which is, I knew they'd be good, but.
You knew they'd be the 10th team in the country.
Yeah, I didn't know they'd be quite that good.
But it's not even really like anybody's fault to blame but the transfer portal NIL nowadays, just because I feel like it's like a microwave now. If you want to win tomorrow, you can at least go try to bid for your talent. For you on the women's side, how is that for you? Like, do you feel like when it first came, were you behind the 8 ball, foreign to it, wanted to stick to your guns, or where were you at with that?
Yeah, I think it's hard because one, we didn't know what it was going to look like, you know. And Val Ackerman, who's the commissioner of the Big East, was one of the 2 co-chairs of the NIL committee. Gene Smith, the retired Ohio State AD, was the other co-chair, and Val kept saying, we have to put guardrails on it. We have to put guardrails on it. Right. And of course, nobody listened to the committee, and they didn't put any guardrails on it. And then all of a sudden, it's like, oh, let's do these collectives. And instead of actually making it NIL where you're actually doing something.
I think they were scared of the lawsuits and where the MCA was kind of stuck because they keep losing every time they go to court.
Yeah, that's
so
what the
afraid
NCAA
to do anything.
Yeah, that's what the NCAA people will tell you is we can't win a lawsuit, and therefore nothing we do has teeth. And everybody blames the NCAA, but it's like, well, what can they do if they can't win a lawsuit? It's not on them. But in terms of like where we are, and then just the first couple of years, the collectives kind of came out of nowhere, and you didn't know where that was going. It is a real thing on the women's side now in terms of that. I'd say we're a little bit later than what happened on the men's side, where everybody was all in within a year and a half. But it's gonna. Next year we go to revenue sharing, so it'll be under the umbrella of the university, which I think helps us because I think it gives us hey, this is how much we have, and this is how we can direct it. And the issues are, okay, if I'm paying player A who's been on my team 2 or 3 years, this much, but now we really need a post player next year. Okay, now I'm going to go pay that post player twice what somebody who's been on our team for 3 years or 2 years has gotten, and they're just as good a player, but it might be something we need. So those are things you have to figure out as a staff, is like, what are we going to do? Because we can create hard feelings if we suddenly just take an outsider and pay him twice what somebody who's been loyal and we've helped develop. So those are tough conversations, but it's a real thing. But I am glad that we're going to go to revenue sharing, because I do think it just makes it a little bit more manageable, and I think it'll be a little bit more of a level playing field, school to school.
Coach Land joining us on Let It Fly show. I will say, though, the benefit is with the WNBA out there and starting to pay a little bit more, Caitlin Clark probably doesn't stay that last year. She probably leaves the year before it. So she comes back. We get to see her for another year. We're going to see Juju Smith probably all the way.
Watkins.
Watkins, thank you. Not the wide receiver. We're going to see Juju go all the way through.
They're both good, though.
Yeah,
they are.
They're both good.
We're going to see her go all the way through. We probably wouldn't have if it wasn't for her making money in college now.
Right. And I think that's where the women's game is well positioned as far as that goes, because I do, even though you say, okay, Ryan Kalkbrenner maybe stayed because, in part because of NIL, but like I think you take an Aaliyah Boston, or like you said, Juju Watkins, those people who are staying 4 years, they get name recognition. It becomes easier for fans to be like, oh yeah.
Yep.
Whereas on the men's side, okay, Zach Edey stayed 4 years. How many other, first round picks stay 4 years? So I do think there's an ability for the women's game to kind of sustain some of the momentum that we've had, because players can gain, like you said, they can get name recognition and maintain it and live well in college.
Yeah, very comfortable. Yeah, no
so from a journalistic side, and maybe this is a question for both of you guys, but I would love to hear from you as a head coach. With NIL as a thing, now is it free game for the journalists to actually critique them like pros? Can we talk about kids? I mean, if I'm paying you, I've seen how much they're paying the center from Kansas.
Right.
Semi-professional now.
Yeah.
So can I talk? How do you feel about the stance of journalists critiquing athletes almost like professional athletes?
Yeah, that's tough because, like we said, mental health is a real thing for 18 to 22-year-olds, probably more so even than by the time they get to their mid and late 20s. I think maybe you can be a little more critical, but I don't know about wholesale. We're gonna.
Yeah.
But I do think if a kid has transferred 3-4 times and they're not putting in the effort, I think there is. If somebody's been loyal and they've worked hard, you would hope that a journalist would recognize that versus somebody who's been a mercenary and played at 3 or 4 schools and hasn't ever had buy-in or investment necessarily in the program. All they've ever invested in is their own well-being. And I think it's fair to criticize them for that more than necessarily that. Well, they don't rebound at the level I wanted them to, or their 3-point shot hasn't developed. But if you feel like they're not a team player, and I don't know.
I mean, because it's kind of like
maybe it is fair game.
I think it is easier. You look at Dylan Raiola, for example.
Right.
As a true freshman, and he's received some criticism because he's struggled. I don't know if he would have gotten the same level of criticism if he wasn't a 6-figure, 7-figure player. I don't think so.
Correct.
I think because I covered Adrian Martinez, who was a freshman in the same situation, wasn't making any money.
Right.
And I know we didn't necessarily criticize Adrian.
So the mistakes were the same. The money was different.
The money,
right?
Exactly.
Okay.
The thought of what he is as a player is different. So I could see a little bit of that.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense.
Because sometimes I look at people like, you making about $500,000, bro. You got to make that.
You make that shot.
Make that play.
Yeah. So we'll talk about Lauren Jinston a little bit because I know she struggled a little bit against Kansas State, but start the season off, I always think of a player like that. She 2-time All Big East first team. Can she take her game to another level? Is there another level for her to get to?
Yeah, I've seen it in practice. Like, I think she is a better player than she's been at any point. And Kansas State did a great job. They've got really good length. They could switch a lot. And, even Lauren came in afterwards and said, I'm sorry, I wasn't very good. I need to be better, which is what I love about her because she takes ownership. She
plays 35 minutes a game.
I know. Yeah. I love it. I love it.
And what I like, I mean, one, she's put in the time so her skills are what they are. But I love her mentality. Like, she can have a bad first quarter and snap out of it in a different way than a lot of players can. And I think that's not as easy as you think, and that's a mature thing to play through a rocky stretch where maybe she misses 3 shots in a row. I know Josh never had a problem missing 3 shots in a row and keep shooting, but
you're right.
But the other thing about Lauren is, like, if she misses 2 or 3 threes in a row, she's gonna put her head down and get to the rim and get 2 free throws.
Yeah,
and
I like that.
Is she really as good a 3-point shooter? If she misses 2, she's super willing to put the ball on the floor, and she's a great finisher around the rim for somebody who's 5'10" and moderately athletic. Like, she can finish with either hand.
Yeah.
She does like spin Mikens as a warm up,
like McDermott.
And I think it's made her a really good finisher, and that's what I think makes her good. Is she's not somebody who settles throughout the course of a game. If the three's going in, she'll keep shooting it, but if it's not, she's going to figure out another way to get you baskets.
I didn't have George Mikan as one of the things on the show today. I didn't have that.
Hey, look, man, I always preach to kids, the game never changes.
Yeah.
No matter what social media looks like, it's still a Mikan drill.
Yeah.
That's what gets you better.
We used to call it the Pistol Pete layup because he was a guy who put it really high off the backboard. He literally put it over the box.
Yeah, I feel you.
Come down.
Yeah, no, that's a real shot.
You never can get a block shot.
Simpson from Michigan. Remember you'd hook shot.
Oh, yeah. My God,
he put the
you
top
couldn't
of
get to that ball.
Yeah.
No
Xavier
doubt.
Xavier Simpson.
Xavier Simpson, yeah.
For sure.
He can score in the paint.
For me, just thinking about the success you've had in the Big East and the tournament runs post conference. the connotation of Creighton has changed. I know when we talk about the men, the expectation is like, hey, no, like we're top tier in the country. Like, do you feel like you guys as a women's program are like there where you consider yourself amongst the elite because you are a high major school and team? Or do you feel like you're gradually still getting there and we just kind of seeing what the future's going to look like?
Well, I hope your second position is the correct one. I think we're close. You know, so we play UCLA at the Chase Center right before Christmas.
I know, that's crazy.
And the other game is Stanford and Ohio State. And Stanford's been one of the 5 best programs in the history of the sport. Ohio State's a really good program. And I think to myself, you know, we wouldn't have been in the position to get asked to play in that game.
Right.
Even 5 years ago, we're not seated at that table, and now we are. Now, whether we can sustain it, that's a big thing. But you know, they told me when they called and said, "Hey, we want you." They said we already have a team, but we want you instead. Which
dang,
you know,
don't mention that team, by the way.
Again, I'm not going to mention that team, but you know, again, that didn't happen. But you know, we still have to keep earning that, I think, and it's not a given. I mean, I think, you know, in our sport, the South Carolinas and UConns, and there's, you know, that hierarchy, and we're in that group that's trying to stay there. And you know, for the same reasons that we talked about the women's game being in a good space, the other part is there is the fact that some of these really, really good players stay 4 years makes it hard to get to that.
Sure, I get it.
Top echelon, because imagine if Kentucky in the Calipari Golden Age, if all those guys were staying 4 years,
to be a senior.
Yeah, if all those guys stayed 4 years, or if Duke had guys stay 4 years, or whatever, you would never see a George Mason or a Wichita State or a Loyola in the Final Four, because those, you know, and that's a little bit what you see in the women's game. Although the number of good players has risen to the point where there is more parity. I still think at the very top of the sport, it is hard to break through because of the turnover rate. Yeah, the turnover. They're not going to the NBA after 1 or 2 years. They're so it's harder if you're not getting, you know, like when we played, two things come to mind. When we played Stanford 2 years ago, their 4th best player dunked in warm-ups.
Oh,
wow.
Their 4th best post player. She played about 9 minutes off the game.
Wow. And she would rather sit on that bench versus...
So they're stockpile, you know, in South Carolina, when you play them, it's like, their 4th best post player is like, wow, that kid would be...
starter anywhere.
You know, so there is a little, probably more so with the post position. There's a stockpiling at that very highest level.
Right. And that's because those 4th positioners know that the top 2, maybe for sure 1 is not coming back. And so they recruit like that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Jim Flanery joining us here, head coach at Creighton. I want to go back to Kansas State for a second, because it's a national televised game. You do all the promotion for it. You get off to the slow start. How much do you think the slow start was because they were so amped for this national championship televised game?
I hope it was a little of that, because I was a little disappointed. I mean, I was disappointed in our performance. I think Kansas State's a really good basketball team. I think they're a team that could be in the Final Four at the end of the year.
But I think you're more so beat ourselves, though.
But we struggled out of the gate. Like you said, we struggled out of the gate, and I just didn't think our attention to detail on the defensive end was what it needed to be. And then when you give them a couple easy baskets that you can't give them, and you play from behind, you start looking at the scoreboard. And then, like you said, then you're like, okay, we got to play. You know, and we've had that with UConn a couple times at home, like where I think we get off to a slow start. We look at the scoreboard and we're like, okay, they're really good. How are we going to? And then things kind of snowball. And I thought that's kind of what happened. But, you know, I also know we had played, I say it's who you play, but it's also when you play. We had played, you know, they had a week in between when they had played, and they played us, and they're at home. And we went to Brookings, had a really good Drake team at home. But between their last game, and then had to turn around and play 2 days later without a lot of prep, without a lot of rest, and that factors in too.
Sure, definitely.
Man, I'll just sitting here, just listening to you talk about your perspective. Like, I mean, obviously, me as a player, like, I kind of feel and think some of the things that you say, but to actually hear you validate it, it just kind of goes to show that your program is way further along than what it may seem in those type of scenarios, you know. And there was a point in time where I would see any team play against a UConn, eventually a South Carolina, and I'm thinking like, hey, like, is just all the best players in the world just coming to two teams? But take those away, it's still very competitive around the women's game of basketball. What's something that you notice on the college level that you've seen like, wow, this is really advanced now versus what it used to be 5 or 10 years ago?
Well, the ability to make individual plays is astronomically different than it used to be. And part of that is everybody, not everybody, but a lot of them have their trainers when they're, you know, they have basketball trainers from 8th grade, 9th grade.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, you know, you used to go to if I was going to an AAU tournament in the summer and I was watching, let's say, sophomores or juniors, you maybe could, you know, there were maybe in a high level game, there were maybe 3 kids on the floor that could do a Euro.
And where were those
in girls basketball?
Where would those women go? Like back then, like what type of rare athletes back then?
Yeah, they were going to the top 10 to 15 programs. But now I said you go to a pretty high level club tournament, and even sophomores, like 8 out of the 10 players on the floor can finish in transition off a Euro. Man. I mean, just the physical. You know, maybe your post players can't, but like all the perimeter players can attack the basket because they've done so much more individual training. Now, the one thing I would say that you don't necessarily is a lot of times they won't make simple plays because they're, you know, it's like sometimes you'll be like, okay, that Euro's great if it goes in, but you had it's a 2-on-1 and all you had to do was throw a simple bounce pass, and the other kid has an easy layup,
Instagram,
and you got to make this layup.
Yeah, I blame it on Instagram, man.
I remember when Simone Augustus was playing LSU, and she would make these one-on-one plays. And I remember being on the radio with Kevin going, eventually you're going to get to a point where one of these young women are going to be an 11th or 12th person on a bench in an NBA game. Right?
It was
she was that dramatically above. Now there are 4 or 5 of those women you see all the time doing that in the WNBA. And now it doesn't matter if they're going to play with the men or not. She had that kind of skill. One last one for you. So this is a hard kind of a dichotomy, right? You get all these players back who are playing their probably most likely final season, unless they can get some more years, playing their final season, and there's a pressure because it's your last one, right? But at the same time, you got to kind of not think that way and go out there and play loose and play free. Balance that for us. How do you make that work?
Yeah, it's tough. You know, I think I haven't hit on them for anything really on the offensive end because I do think that's where you feel pressure, right? Is I got to make shots or I got to do this. But, you know, for instance, the South Dakota State game, which we led by 3 midway through the third quarter. And then there were, you know, we had said they have a really good post player. We had said we got to get, when the ball's on the wing, we got to get to the low side so our help side defense can come into play. And we did a really good job of that for 2.5 quarters. And then all of a sudden, I showed them after the game, I said 4 possessions in a row. We stood directly behind the post. And I said, we have 6'1" guarding.
You have size,
And then when we play Kansas State, you know, like if we lose attention to detail because we think it's okay, I'll stay behind this time. And then somebody else stood behind the second time. And then the third time, another one. And it's like, you guys, we're not good enough to do that. So I guess what I'm saying is like, I've hammered them on attention to detail on the defensive end. And I kind of the offensive end will work out. I'm not, because I think that's where you feel the pressure. And you have to acknowledge that they do have high expectations, but like you can control whether you decided to stay behind the post or you got to the low side. Like that was just moving your feet.
Sure. Right. Yeah.
It wasn't, hey, you got to.
Sure.
And I think that's how you've got to approach it. And we'll get there. I love our team. We played 3 teams that were all picked to win their league.
Man.
And 2 of them were on the road. So, yeah.
We're taping this on Thursday. When this comes out, it'll be a couple hours from you guys playing at home against Nebraska.
I was going to
what's that rivalry kind of been like? What's it kind of developing with you and Amy and those 2 teams?
It's a good rivalry. I feel like I get along well with Amy. I like their staff. I mean, it's been, you know, we cheer for them most of the year. And we've had some recent success. That's been fun. I mean, I think it means more to our Nebraska kids. We have 3, Morgan Molly from Creighton.
Yep.
Right.
She played with Alexis Markowski in the summer, and Jamie Horan from Millard South. And then we added Sydney Galladay from Fremont, who had been playing at Fort Hays. But, I think it means more to them. But I think everybody else knows that it means more to Morgan and Jamie. So they take it.
Yeah.
I mean,
more
every game's important, but I think there's a little extra that goes into that prep, and there's but it is about managing emotions too. You want to be high but not too high, because and last year Morgan came out smoking. She had 14 points in the first 6 minutes. Yeah. I was like, I said in practice the other day, I said, that'd be great if you did that, but if you don't score 14 points in the first 5 minutes, we still have a chance to win.
Right?
It's going to be a 40-minute game.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, no, you took it right out of my mouth.
Coach, we appreciate it. Good luck later this afternoon when this comes out. Thank you very much for coming on with us.
Okay. Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Josh.
All right, welcome back to Let It Fly Show. Thanks to Coach Flan.
Coach Flan.
Coming on.
Real nice dude.
Chopping it up. He is. He's a good dude. And I think you get this now with having your kids.
Mm-hmm.
When you talk to somebody, and every time you talk to them, they ask you about your kids.
Right.
And they know things about them because they follow, It gives you a different impression of someone. It really does.
Yeah.
Coach Martin, Larry Martin, who coaches at Omaha North, who I've known because Damon coached there for a while. I've known him for a while.
Right.
Every time I run into him, he asked about Miles.
Man.
Because when I first met him, Miles was always in the hospital. So he would ask me about him. 16, 17 years later, still ask me about him. Same thing with Coach Flan.
But the thing with Flan is, he mean it, though.
Oh, no, I agree.
He not just trying to make small talk.
I don't think it's an act. I think he does too.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes him a good coach is he's compassionate. He's a player's coach. He cares about the player.
He's relatable.
He said Scooter's coffee with all of them. I bet you he had something to do with that idea.
Yep. Yeah.
He just knows that he's
idea.
He's not the right one to relate to him because he's older. But no, he's a stand-up guy. I'm amazed on where the women's game has went overall.
Sure.
But the level that Creighton is playing at, man, I tune in.
Yeah, you used to have about 2 or 3 teams. When I first started covering the game, that was in 1998 in Ruston, Louisiana. You had about maybe 5 or 4.
Mm-hmm.
It was Tennessee, Louisiana Tech, North Carolina, Texas Tech with Cheryl Swoops. That was about it. Everybody else was way down here.
Right.
And LSU moved up, and all Baylor, all these teams. And all of a sudden you looked at Stanford.
Right.
Now you got 20.
Man, I
it's a different
remember
game.
when I actually was a student athlete at Creighton, his women's team won the Missouri Valley Conference in a year I didn't think they had a chance.
Yeah.
And then they just kept winning in like a series of times and tournaments, and now to move to the Big East. He's always been consistent. He just, to me, hasn't been like magnified on his intentions.
Yeah.
Now he's just letting the game do the talking.
And they're overshadowed, obviously, by the men's program.
Game?
Yeah. Let's do keys. Time for the keys of the game. Now, I know this. You're younger than me, so I'm not sure about this. Was Schoolhouse Rock around for you guys?
Yeah.
Okay, I know. Schoolhouse Rock, got started when I was a kid.
Conjunction Junction.
Exactly. So you had Grammar Rock, which was a Conjunction Junction. You had American Rock, which we the people in order to form
we
a
the
perfect.
people.
We how to become a bill.
What about a bill? Yeah.
That's also, and then you also had Multiplication Rock.
Right.
And one of my favorite ones was the number 6.
Mm-hmm.
We got 6, it was called. We got 6.
Yeah.
We got 6. That's what our first key is. 6s.
Yeah.
Not 3s.
We need some
6s. When Nebraska gets in the red zone, they got to get 6.
Right.
Last week in the red zone, I mentioned, Nebraska got there, kicked 2 field goals.
Mm-hmm.
They lose by 8.
Right.
The difference between that is 4.
4
and 4 are 8.
Yeah.
Multiplication rock plus rock.
Right.
So here's the Huskers. They've been 39 times inside of the red zone.
Right.
And they've scored 20 touchdowns. You can't be around 50% and win at a high level.
No.
The only teams worst in the Big Ten in the red zone, touchdown-wise, are Northwestern, Michigan State, and UCLA. Dang. You cannot be 50%. 6s, not 3s, and hopefully get the extra point, too.
Right.
So you got that going for you.
I'm following
6s, not 3s.
I'm with you today.
Number 2. Number 2. Do you have a favorite MC Hammer song?
Yeah. I got 2, actually.
Okay.
The first one I ever heard was "Can't Touch This." Obviously.
Oh yeah, Can't Touch This. Yeah.
And then the other one was how does it go? I can't even think of it.
Well, the one I'm going to pick
Go
now
ahead.
is let's get it started.
All right.
Let's get it started.
Hey, this is killing me. Go ahead.
So
let's
get it started. You have one by MC Hammer, but then also the Black Eyed Peas also had that song, Let's Get It Started.
They did. Too Legit to Quit.
Oh, yeah. Too Legit to Quit. That's with Dion was in that. So that's our second key.
Yeah.
How you get it started. Listen to this. During the 4-game losing streak, do you know how many points Nebraska scored their offense in the first quarter? During the 4-game losing streak, when they lost to Indiana, Ohio State, UCLA, USC, during that streak, how many points has the offense scored in the first quarter?
3 or 0?
It's 0.
Yeah.
None.
I knew it was.
They had the pick 6 this past week against USC, but they have not scored. In Big Ten play, Nebraska's only scored 17 points in the first quarter. They scored 10 in one game and 7 in another.
Right.
They have not scored a touchdown in the first quarter since October 5th against Rutgers.
And see, when you break things down like that, it shows you why they're not winning games.
Yeah.
Like those are real stats.
So the number 2 key is let's get it started.
For sure.
Come out. You got senior day.
Yeah.
You're going to have energy in the building.
Dang.
This is your chance. Come out and let's get it started.
Yep.
All right. You ever watch NFL films growing up?
I did.
So NFL films would have those great speeches from coaches back in the day,
Yep.
right? One of my favorite ones is our third key. Now, this Lou Saban is loosely related to Nick Saban, like second cousins. Second cousins like that, okay. So in one of them, Lou Saban says, you can get it done. You can get it done. What's more, you got to get it done. Love it. Love when he says that. This is game 11 of 12. This is senior day.
Yep.
You're at home at Memorial Stadium. You haven't won a game in over a month. You gotta get it done.
There we go.
There are times where you put stats aside.
Yeah.
You put records aside.
Yeah.
You put names on the jerseys aside. All of that. And you simply come out and you play for the man to your left and the man to your right. I got your 6. You got my 6. You got to play for each other, and you got to get it done. The third key is simple. No more excuses.
Right.
No more BS.
Right.
No more whining about referees. No more complaining about we didn't do this, we didn't do that. Win the damn game.
That's true.
Get your 6th win.
Yeah.
And don't be sitting there having to go to Iowa on a Black Friday at night in Kinnick and have to win.
Right.
Get it done.
Now let me ask you this.
You gotta get it done.
Anywhere else Matt Rule was he ever in these predicaments with his growing program, so to speak?
No, usually, the second year.
That's what I'm trying to say.
The second year, the first time at Temple wasn't great. But then at the end it was good. His second year at Baylor was better. But they have had, in back-to-back years now, 9 opportunities. 9 opportunities. 4 last year.
Yeah. And
basically 5 this year to get to 6 wins. And they are over.
Man.
They've been right there. That would be like you going to Vegas and you got 14 or better yet, you got 10 right? Yeah. And you're like, I need 1 face card.
Right.
And you wait, and 9 straight times you don't get it.
Dang.
All you need is 1 card. You need 1 win. 9 times you don't get it.
Dang. Yeah, that's tough, man.
No more excuses. No more moping.
Yeah.
No more, I didn't make a play. That ball got tipped. It bounced this way. The wind was blowing too hard. My booty hurt. No more of that.
Right.
Just win the damn game.
But that's why, like, for me, I'm like, man, I think Coach Rule is actually a good coach.
No, I think he's a good coach.
I think it's on the players, bro.
No, it's definitely on the players.
He can't.
It's always on
He can't say nothing. There's nothing else he can say or do.
Mac can draw up all the great plays he wants.
Yeah.
And he can get a guy wide open off of some elevator screen. The guy comes around, he's wide open. He can't go out there and shoot it for him.
Nah, dog.
Matt Rule can't go out there and make Malcolm Hartsock close his hands around the ball.
Right. Yeah. We're not asking for his job. We're asking for your effort.
Go win the damn game.
For sure.
What's your prediction?
Dang. Man, I pause on that just because it's like I know what it should be, but at this point it's like I got to be objective and not subjective at some point.
Yep.
I mean, damn. I'ma say all right, give me the scenario like I'm Just you walking up to me.
Yeah.
You telling me it's a Nebraska about to play Wisconsin.
Nebraska's
game.
playing Wisconsin 2:30 in Memorial Stadium on Senior Day. Who wins?
The Huskers.
All right, you got a score?
The score is going to be 21. No. It's going to be 28-21 Nebraska.
28-21, kind of the inverse of last week when they lost 28-20.
28-21 Nebraska.
I am picking Nebraska.
Yeah.
20-19. Wisconsin drives down at the end of the game, gets a touchdown. Nebraska blocks the extra point.
I like it.
They block the extra point, win the game 20-19.
On Senior Day.
On Senior Day to get their 6th win, to be bowl eligible for the first time since 2016. In 2016, you were not married.
No.
You had no kids.
0.
You run the streets.
I was.
That's how long ago that was.
Right. And
that was in high school. That was in middle school.
And check this out. I got this vision of a player saying, man, we had to do it for Coach Rule.
There you go.
Watch.
Give him football. Give him a game ball.
Give it to
Give him to Coach Rule.
He needs that.
Special thanks to Coach Jim Flanery joining us, talking about basketball and everything else. It was great. Of course, King Val Elvis on the wheels of steel, putting everything together. Phil McLean, our executive producer, thanks to him as well. Meg was in there. She shot some pictures of the food and us sitting with our guests and everything, too. We'll get those out. We'll have the show out. We take the show out early tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because you'll be watching this on Friday, and we're talking to Flan. That game starts at 4.
Right.
So we got to have it out a little bit earlier.
Right.
That's certainly the hope as well. Thanks to our presenting sponsor, Bud Light, for everything they do. We appreciate Bud Light for that. Thank you very much. And, of course, easy drinking, easy buckets, wherever you are, easy to enjoy. That is Bud Light. Also, if you're listening to us on YouTube or watching on YouTube, subscribe and like. Really easy to do. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple, like.
Yep.
Simple. Leave comments, too. Comments are great.
They are.
You can say whatever you want.
Right.
You can say, man, Josh need a haircut.
Please.
You can say that.
Right.
You can say, damn, Michael, how come you got all them clothes on? Because it was cold earlier.
Outside, right.
But you say whatever you want. Comments are great.
Haircut,
we need that. No doubt about it.
I do need a haircut.
Sir, take us away.
Hey, Josh Jones here with my man Michael Severe. When you see me again, I'm going to have a haircut. But you know how we do it? It's a Let It Fly show.